Welcome, Photoshop students. This demonstration is going to go over one of my all-time favorite basic tools, and that is the clone stamp tool. The clone stamp tool can be found here in your tool panel, and it is grouped with one other tool, the pattern stamp tool, which we'll probably have time to go over later this semester. But this is the clone tool, and we're going to talk about how you select a brush with the clone tool, select the area of the image that we'd like copied, how to use the clone tool to remove an unwanted shadow, for example, and how you might use the clone tool to duplicate something. And we're, in this case, going to add a tree. So let's take a look at this image, this first image. We have the shadow of the photographer taking the photo in the bottom right of the image. And so one thing that you can do is you can look at some of the nearby areas and say, well, is there stuff that I could use to cover up the shadow? And in this case, lucky us, of course there is. We can use some of these grasses nearby to cover up the shadow. And so what I need to do is, with my clone stamp tool selected, I need to set a brush size. Now I could use a relatively large brush and just do it in one click. As you can see, if I set my brush size really large, I can cover the entire area of the shadow. And that might be a possibility. So we might be able to do that. I don't know how believable that will look with some of the grasses nearby. Sometimes it's a better idea to repeat a pattern nearby, but we'll give it a try. We'll see what happens. So I can choose the size of my brush and then the relative hardness. And the hardness is related to how the brush works. It's as if you were using a brush and dipping it in water. And it's how soft the edge of that brush is going to be. And also, some brushes, like a fan brush, are very soft on the edges, whereas other brushes have a very hard, like a square brush, have a very hard edge. So if you think of this in real brush terms, it's a little easier to understand. I am going to have a relatively soft brush. If I set the hardness to 100%, then it's going to use very harsh edges, and it might make the clone effect a little too obvious. So I'm going to use maybe about, well, let's try a middle. We'll try it right in the middle. I don't want it too hard nor too soft. So it's as if we're adding a bit of water to the edge of the brush. And now the next thing I need to do is I need to select an area of the image to copy. And to do this, I actually have to click on the Alt key on my keyboard. When I click on the Alt key on the keyboard, it changes the cursor to a little target pipper. I'll do that again. I'm going to hit the Alt key on the keyboard, and it changes it to a target pipper. And so I can actually select an area of the image to copy, and I'm going to choose nearby grasses that are closer to the same size, but I don't want something too obvious like these grasses here are a little too recognizable. I want something more generic like these grasses in this zone here. So with the Alt key selected, I'm going to click, and that sets the copy zone. And now you can see what's interesting. As I move my cursor, it kind of shows us how it's going to look when we apply the stamp tool. It pulls this zone over into this zone. So it's really a magical tool. And I can kind of move it into place and click, and boom, shadow is gone. It's really an amazing, amazing tool, extremely helpful. And we can't really tell, because I used a more generic grass area, we can't really tell that the clone stamp was even used because it's just pattern. We just selected a generic zone. So it can be a very powerful tool and help us with our image restoration. Now if I look at another example, we can actually add a tree. if we'd like. We can remove trees, we can add trees. I could copy and place a tree. Let's say I liked this tree for whatever weird reason, or I liked this little tree. We'll start with this one in the absence of a lot of time. We'll just copy this little tree and we'll put him over here. Or maybe we'll put him over here. So I'm going to, again, with my clone stamp tool selected, I have to choose an appropriate size brush. And notice how it's still carrying the grasses from the previous image. And that's another really cool thing to know, is that you can actually bring something over from another image. If I click and it's okay, I don't have an actual showing. Okay, let me turn off some of these other images here. And we can select a layer that's useful, and I click, and oh my goodness, I added grass into the snow, and that's not cool at all. So I'm going to delete that. But it is interesting to note that you can bring stuff from other images into the image you're working on. So that's helpful and handy. I'm going to use an appropriate size brush for the tree, which is actually small. So I'm going to use a little bit of a smaller brush here. And I'm going to, again, keep the relative hardness of the edge. Let's make it just a little bit softer. Now I have to choose the tree. I need to not be putting grass into the snow. So using the Alt key on the keyboard, I'm going to select now the tree area. And then if I go over here, I can kind of see how he's going to look. I can move him around the image and maybe find a believable place to put him. Maybe if I put him in here, he looks too bright and it doesn't make sense at all. But here, it kind of fits into the snow. And here, it's very close to where he came from. He kind of fits into the snow area there, so I could click and I added a duplicate of the tree. So sometimes, depending on your composition, you may have occasions where you'd like to add or subtract elements, and I just showed you how you could quickly and easily add an additional element. And this actually concludes your introduction to one of my favorite all-time tools. I use it all the time, the clone stamp tool.